Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen, welcome to episode 8 of the Rich by Monday podcast. I am your host, Jared Wilkins, aka the Google grad.
And
And
I'm
with
Dorrance Creighton.
There we
Thanks for
go.
joining us
Getting better
again.
at that. Getting a lot better at that. I'm feeling better about it every week.
All right. I feel like I need an AKA name. AKA now.
I think
I
we
need,
have too many as it is,
yeah, no. I don't need any more.
which was like part of the problem of like for me starting the podcast because I'm like, I don't know who to be. Like,
Who do I present as?
like, who to do? Like I have like 5 Instagram pages. Like who I don't
All
know who
right.
to be.
I think about that when I'm introducing myself now because some people know me as Creighton, some people know me as Dorrance. And I'm like, yeah, nice to meet you. I gotta pick one.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, low key.
Yeah.
I think it's only weird because you old now. Like we're grown, so
Hmm.
it's like, man, I just want to say my real name.
Yeah.
I just want to be me. I don't want to,
Yeah. Just
you know,
mark it yourself.
yeah. Because then I feel like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like it's like, hey, I'm some made up nickname at
Yeah.
34 years old. Like,
Hey, I'm Richie Rich. It's like,
yeah,
man,
like
you 50 years old. What are you talking about?
exactly. Like you're not, he's not an adult. Um,
Right. Right.
so what's going on, man?
Not much, man. It's been an interesting week. Um, um, I was able to help a buyer close on their second property, so that was cool.
That's what's up.
And basically just now that everything's opening back up, getting back out here, and getting back to work. Now that I'm half vaccinated, so I got my second one coming pretty soon. So I'm 50% safe. But yeah, I'm just ready for to get back out here. Ready to get back out here and get back to work. So what's
Man,
been
that
going on
that
with you?
second shot, that second shot is no bueno. I was
Yeah.
like, it was like I said, I thought I died. It felt like somebody pushed me out of a moving car, and I just rolled
Yeah.
around and they scooped me up and then they took me home. That's what it felt like. Like no hospital, no nothing. Just picked me up, put me in the
Right.
bed.
You just
But
go home, just walk it off.
yeah.
Walk it off.
the funny thing is, the funny thing is, the next day, my parents, because I came to my parents' house, because we didn't get to see them on Mother's Day. It was a lot going on, so we came to my parents' house this week, and like the very next day, they were like, "Oh, we're taking the baby to the zoo." So now we got to go to the zoo, and I'm like, I'm still recovering from falling out of this vaccine
Right.
car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You need to walk. Like it'll help.
hmm
The walking will
See, and
help."
I knew it was gonna say walk it off. This
Yeah,
this
man.
is our parents. Walk it off.
And this is why I broke a bone as a child, and I didn't know because I just
Mm.
knew my parents weren't going to take me to the doctor, and I didn't
Right.
find out until like 3 years later that I broke a bone
Wow.
uh, in my foot.
He's walking it off 3 years.
Yeah, I just kept playing because I knew if I went home, it'd be Robitussin or
Put that Vicks on, drink a Sprite.
some ginger
they,
ale.
they think Vicks and Sprite cures everything.
Yeah, man. So yeah, we took baby girl to the zoo. She had the time of her life,
Yeah, that's
feeding
cool.
giraffes, and yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Low key, I
Hmm.
will say though, I have developed like a new guilty pleasure.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, I don't think it's controversial, but I do think it's polarizing.
I'm like, what is this? is this is this proper for this platform?
Yeah, I mean, I've been going down like a YouTube rabbit hole
Mm-hmm.
of like videos where people get caught for PPP fraud,
Mm. Okay.
and I don't know why it's so entertaining to see, to see, to see people get arrested for
Right.
something they thought they would never get arrested for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's been the thing. I've really been on that. Like, I mean, there's guys who made music videos,
Mm-hmm.
um, just flossing the money, um,
Yeah.
actually showing the EDD claims and all that, and then they got arrested. I think that
That's
was probably
wild.
that was the funniest one.
I seen the video like in the middle of a pandemic where
Yeah,
they had the guys rapping about EDD fraud in a music video, and I was
they got
like,
arrested.
it was
Well,
catchy though.
one of them. It was. I like the song.
It
One
was
of them,
catchy.
one of them got arrested. The part that's so funny though is like they keep showing, and I know this is done intentionally, but they keep showing like a very specific type of person who's committing like fraud,
Hmm. Oh
right?
yeah.
And then they flash to this guy who looks like what's the neighbor's name on the Simpsons?
Ned Flanders.
Him. So they flash
Yeah.
to a guy like Flanders, and
Hmm.
he's sitting there at home in his computer. And he's like, I can't get any money. I keep applying, I keep applying, and I keep getting denied. And then they flash to like the music video
Right. Right.
of them just throwing money around and
Right.
buying jewelry, and it's
Hmm.
hilarious. It's a whole thing. I
Yeah.
suggest if you have some time to kill, uh, if you can't sleep at night, just Google
Right.
PPP fraud on YouTube or something, and be amazed. But it also made me think though, because it was a conversation we've had before,
Hmm.
just about how to go about, or if we were to have reparations, how to go about it in a way.
Right.
And it made me think, like, what if the PPP loans, I'm speaking metaphorically,
Hmm.
what if the PPP loans were reparations? Like, what if that was like like a rough draft?
Like a test rollout. Like, let's
Yeah,
see
like
how
let
they'll
me
do
see
with
what.
free money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that would be interesting. We failed that test. Well, I can only say based on what I see on my feed and the people who are, really promoting PPP loans or charging people to push them through. And I don't know. I don't know if all those things are true or if they're valid. But from what I see, like just like really marketed, or from what other people are doing, um, it looks bad. It looks bad from my angle. So I wonder, I wonder what the stats are, what the actual data is to people who got PPP loans or EDD assistance or was it EI, is it
EIDL.
EIDL loan?
I think
Uh,
those were actually harder to like scam, because
yeah.
they had a grant, and so I think the grant was self certification, right? But
Hmm.
it's a grant up front anyway. I think up to a certain amount. I think it's when you get into actually getting loans is where people got creative.
Well, the main difference is the PPP loan was going to be forgivable. That's what
Yeah.
they was harping on. The EDIL loan was like basically a 30-year loan at low interest rate,
Hmm.
something like 3% over 30 years. So it's a very cheap loan. And I've
Even
always
even with
thought,
even with
why?
PPP though, you have to apply for forgiveness, right?
Right, you still have to apply for the forgiveness,
Okay.
which haven't rolled out yet. So we'll see what that process is like. What type of or what type of documentation you have to show, bank statements. I'm sure that's going to be in there. Where does money go to?
Hmm.
Um, because pretty much those loans, they didn't pull credit. They didn't really verify documents. It was just a free for all. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and unfolds once the pandemic is over and people start crossing their T's and dotting their I's on these loans. Um, we're gonna need a whole nother forgiveness program for everyone, everyone who just scammed the system when everyone was most vulnerable. So,
I mean, I didn't realize it was that big of like a racket. Like I knew people were, I knew people were going to do what they can to get money. And
mm-hmm,
if you absolutely needed money, like I'm not upset at you for trying something. Okay. Like uh we're not we're not speaking to make fun of people, I should say. Right. It's just, I mean, it is funny, but it's only funny because like the rules are kind of laid out in front of you, but and you kind of just choose not to pay attention to them. But I
mm-hmm,
didn't realize it was a big racket on that level of like people who were like people who are like you said, helping to push these loans through. Because
mm-hmm,
what that part of the situation isn't really a big deal. Like from what I've learned, the approval process, or like the amount I should say, is based on like a formula based on your
mm-hmm.
payroll.
Yep,
So really, if you just put in, if you lied about how much you had for payroll, then that would determine what they would give you.
yep. It's
And
basically your monthly payroll times, I believe it was 2.5 times 2.5. That'll be your payout.
so
So
okay,
I
so
think
okay, that
what
makes
people
sense.
why we
Makes
always
sense then.
see $20,000, because I believe um, if it was under a certain amount, and I think the threshold was either 20 or 30,000, it was forgivable. So I think that's why you see a lot of people that was pushing, hey, you can get $20,000 and it's forgivable.
Yeah, but nah. It's from what I was reading, you have to you well see, and there was two rollouts. So I don't know about the first rollout. Right, I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's different, but the second rollout, from what I was reading, is you have to apply for forgiveness once all the money is spent,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to
Right.
prove that all the money was spent on like rent,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Utilities,
utilities, things like
payroll.
that, payroll,
Right.
and like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you apply, and they determine if you know you're approved for forgiveness. But the thing, like I said, the thing that was like really stuck out to me is I didn't realize people were really out here um, charging like 5, 10, $15,000 to
Mm-hmm.
lie on the application for you,
Right.
because
Right.
that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If those people were putting in fraudulent applications, yeah. But I mean, there was a system. Well, still was a system for somebody to legitimately help someone file the paperwork. Um, and it is, I mean, the paperwork is not rocket science either. So I think
that's what I'm
for
saying.
those who wanted somebody to file it for them, I believe that they wanted to also make whatever they needed to make in terms of documentation for
To
them
get the money.
also. You know, so I think it probably was the whole racket, not just because if you're not a business owner, whatever you're reading in terms of filing for the PPP loan or whatever loans
Hmm.
from the SBA, you don't know what this stuff means.
Yeah, that's true. You just think
Like
it's
you
a
don't know.
loan or some money. Yeah, that's true.
Most people don't really know what it is, how loans work, or what you need to provide. Those type of things. So when it comes to being a business owner and all those words and terms, and okay, your payroll times 2.5, it's like, well, I don't know what this means.
But that's the part that's like funny though, because here's the thing that always gets me to say like, why are we like this?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I know it's not
Right.
just us, but it's just period, like culturally. Um, if you're gonna get help on something like that, why would I get help from a guy who used to like work at the liquor store,
Mm-hmm.
who all of a sudden is like, I can get you $30,000 from the government.
Mm-hmm.
Tap in. Like,
Yeah.
why would I go to that guy?
It was so crazy. I mean, yeah,
Why
yeah.
wouldn't I actually go to like a lawyer or a CPA or the SBA directly? and
Mm-hmm.
find like someone that they can appoint to help. Like, why would I just go to some random dude who either I don't know or I know, but they have no business doing anything like that because it's out of the norm of what they do anyway.
Mm-hmm. I've seen the
Right?
most random people promoting that they can get people PPP loans.
Yeah,
Most random people, and um, I mean that just speaks to you knowing that this is not the right thing to do, but but you're gonna try it anyway. I mean, people
I
know
don't know. I'm
it didn't
always
come from the right
amazed.
source.
I'm always amazed at like people's like wavering faith in the government,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they'll say they'll say the government can solve all their problems. We should give all
Mm-hmm.
of our money to the government. Then they'll also say the government doesn't know what they're doing, right? And then they'll also say the government is dumb and they won't find out that I lied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like a wavering faith of, hey, give let's pay all this money to the government so they can solve all these problems. But
Mm-hmm.
then you're on the flip side of that, it's well, the government is too dumb to find out that I lied on a federal loan.
Yeah. Because
I get
they're
always
coming from,
amazes me,
yeah,
always.
yeah, they're coming directly from Small Business Administration, and that's a federal program
Like what?
that's run by the government.
I think, and honestly, I don't think like I think the most like the crazy cases, like the guys who got millions of dollars. I think those guys will probably end up in jail. Well, a lot of them already have,
Mm-hmm.
because they've been cracking down a lot. Um, I think it'll only be like the extreme cases. I think that'll get punished on that level. I think
Yeah,
the average person will just have to pay it back.
yeah.
Which still sucks because if you didn't have 30 grand before,
Mm-hmm.
where are you gonna find 30 grand now? But
I mean,
they're gonna be able to just take it.
even that is not really any type of like punishment that's going to change anybody's behavior because
No.
most likely these people had bad credit anyway. So that's just another derogatory on the report.
Yeah, but
I was like,
I
oh,
wouldn't
okay,
even think it'd be that kind of an issue. I mean, this is the government; they can garnish your wages. I would assume.
yeah. Look, this is what I believe is going to happen. They're going to roll that debt also in the school loan debt, and um, they're going to promote that we should just delete all this debt. It was a pandemic, people were struggling. It's very important to just erase all the debt,
How do you
erase
delete
all,
the? How do you do
erase.
that?
That's what they're doing. That's what they're fighting for now. Even when it comes to back rent, let's just delete it all. Let's delete all back rent. Let's delete our student loans. Let's delete the PPP loans. Let's just erase everything and start from zero.
Delete all this shit.
Delete it all.
I mean, student loans. I do think, to some degree, there is a case for student loans because, in many instances, I largely feel like the government got involved in that, like, for a very specific reason,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't really beneficial like, to the people who were actually in the programs.
Yeah, 100%.
So I do think there's a case for that, and they need to fix that.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason why someone who like went to a prestigious university, or because they wanted to. I mean, they made the choice, right? But they went to a certain university to get like a degree that may not have you know worked out to a salary they felt they needed to live, but yet they have this ridiculous amount in student loans
Yeah.
that what I'm saying. So it's still a choice that they had to make, thinking
Yeah.
about what the salary was going to be after I invested this money. But
That I
I do
agree
think
with that.
that's not right though.
I also agree with that. Um, the issue is they made the education too expensive. There's no way that your education, the amount you're paying for education, where you have to make sure that you're gonna attain a certain job that can pay it off in a
Hmm.
reasonable amount of time. There's no way people should have to go to school and pay 60,000, 80,000, 100,000 back. Like, how could you give someone who's 18 to 21 that much money without? It's a Nina loan. There's no income, no assets for students.
Yeah.
No income, no assets, no credit for students. These are brand new people, just finished high school, no financial education, and then you're going to give this person $30,000, an average of 30. The average student loan is like between $30,000 and $40,000
Hmm.
to a baby.
Yeah.
And you can make this is the only product you can make at any price, and people would have to get it. They'd have to do it because it's going to increase their likelihood of making more money further down the future. And um, people don't really care because the government pays for it anyway. And you're always thinking, I'll pay it back. If
Yeah,
you're
that's
18
true.
to 21, you're always thinking, well, I'll have time to pay it back. I'm young. And they don't talk about the interest that accrues on the loan once you defer it. So the
Yeah.
interest is compounding and you're paying interest on interest.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy articles and stats like
Mm-hmm.
where dang, I wish I remembered exactly what it was, but there was one where like a woman said she's been paying on her loan for like 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only reduced like $6,000 in principal.
Yeah. And in many cases, they owe more now than when they started. And that's
Yeah,
the
that's
only
wild.
thing that I know of that you can't even refinance for a better rate. How is this
That's wild.
possible?
That's
How is it
wild.
possible? How is it possible to start at 18 years old, give somebody $40,000 without any documentation how they can pay it back, and that's just cool.
Well,
And
because
you and
they
you can
know
make
they'll
the
be a
product whatever
taxpayer.
price you want.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I mean
I
that I
think
mean we talking about other people scamming the government, but the government been running a few scams of their own for a long
but
time.
that's what I be saying. Like, why we always want to give our money to the government and allow them to control all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like our I was telling my mom the other day. I was like, you know what? I think actually no. I was telling Vita. I was like, you know what? I think at any point in time, at least in my lifetime, like in our lifetime, I feel like this is the most. At this point in time in history, I feel like we have the most incompetent people in places of leadership,
Mm-hmm.
like more than any other time in history.
Why do
It
you think
just
that
I
is?
don't. It just feels that way. It feels like everybody's just like, especially here in California. Like in California, if you could have 10 people in a room, like and we all agree with something, or we all have like the same point,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one person who disagrees makes the rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's what California is, right? California is we have the majority who um, who are actually participating, uh, doing what they need to do, and then you have this very very small group of people who then shape the rules that blanket the entire state,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't help them, right? But the government has done such a good job, or they've done a good enough job of vilifying anybody who has more than you.
Do you
So it,
think that's a minority of people who make the rules, or a majority?
no, it's a minority.
You think
It's
so?
it's because and we're getting very we're gonna get canceled again. But
Man, this is my thing. I don't give a shit. It's
oh man. I just
they
because I know like people don't have these conversations, man. They just go with what
we are
nobody
setting up a
looks
world.
deeper.
We're setting up a world where people can't speak their truth. without hoping that they're canceled in some way. And I'm off that. I'm I'm off that.
We can't get
So
fired from our own thing.
the people who right, the people who are not interested, just turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, and whoever wants to be here and tribe up and talk about these things, and we know the context about around or behind a lot of things that don't help us, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to be
Hmm.
successful anyway. So if you're part of that tribe and on that train, then we can ride together. But if you're not and you outside and you come over here and say, I don't like what they're saying, you're not supposed to be over here anyway. Go to a
That's your
group
fault.
where people only believe what you believe, and then we'll be good. Because I'm interested in hearing all different angles. Interested in hearing things that I may not believe in, so I can I can break them down for myself and figure out if it's useful or if it's not.
Hmm.
So I'm okay with sitting back and listening to learn, and not just listening to speak or listening to prove my point.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I don't know why I went off on that rant. Yeah,
Yeah.
people
No,
trying to cancel people. Like
well,
it's a
I just
mess.
understand. I understand how it goes, and this is because even like we were talking to William yesterday. Shout out Mo. You know what I'm saying? Got a chance to talk to Will
Yeah.
yesterday, and he brought up how we could have how one of the goals for the podcast was to have like older people come on the
Hmm.
show, like landlords, to tell their story, how they got started, what they actually deal with in terms of their interactions with tenants and
Hmm.
and the government. But it's like I'm kind of hesitant to do that because that blows up the spot for them.
Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? Because now their tenants or their problem tenants get an inside look at who they're dealing with.
Hmm.
And they can use that. They can take that, go to city council and use that against them.
Hmm.
Even if that person is just sitting here saying, you know, they're not saying anything crazy. They're just telling you what they do on the daily. Um, and they're talking about what they deal with. Like that can be used against you just
Right.
because you have something and the government has set a precedent that if you have something, you are basically evil.
Hmm.
We have to take the side of the person who has nothing, relatively speaking,
Hmm.
who doesn't have what you have, because you only have it because they don't have it, right? So they've been able to paint this narrative that every single landlord is like some huge oil producing corporation, like
Yeah.
you know.
No.
So it's a weird thing, like where they'll paint the picture to ruin the relationship between the people who actually service you so that you only have to rely on them,
Hmm.
right? And then that way they'll always have a base to push their agendas through because the smallest group of people have the loudest voice in that sense, right?
Right.
People who are actually working, I'm not saying these people aren't working, but people who are out here maintaining a certain way of life, there's certain things that they're not going to be able to do because of what they're doing. They're not going to be able to come to city hall in the middle of the day.
Hmm.
They're not, things like that. But the politicians know if I need something pushed through, as long as I cater to my base, they'll show up in numbers because they
Hmm.
outnumber, the have-nots outnumber the haves.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%. I
And
mean
so they know that.
that the government or Gavin Newsom's new plan, $100 billion plan to save California. Um,
Say
did
that
you
is that
see?
is that,
did,
that's disgusting. Okay, like that's to save California. Like what? Get
it's
out of here.
officially called the California Comeback Plan.
Okay.
and he just uh they announced they had 75 billion in surplus in
Mm.
California, which means just money in the bank. Um, where does the state keep their money? I'm gonna look that up later because if that's a surplus, I mean it's probably making some type of return somewhere. You would think.
No, because they no.
Okay, that's another thought. That's something else I got to
That's not
research.
that's not their job. Their job is to create regulation and then overpay for somebody to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why if you're a business owner who does government contracts, you love government contracts because they overpay you.
Yep, they're gonna just pay. They're gonna cut the check, and the check is always going to cash.
There you go.
I was gonna say, oh, did you see the new plan he had to here we go again, erase everyone's ticket fees
Yeah,
and fines,
yeah, I laughed at that.
delete it all.
Um, I laughed at that.
It's just there's a certain amount of pandering to people who have the lease 100%. I looked at that plan. I said, I don't have any tickets. How does that help me? And that may be a little
Yeah.
selfish, but if you want to do that, that's fine. But also give me something. If we giving stuff out, give me something too.
You want your ticket? I
I
want
want something paid off. I want something
yeah.
deleted.
I mean,
But
that
I
that's
want to.
true. That's
That's
true.
because he's in a recall election right now. They got enough. They got enough votes to start the recall. I believe they only have to do like 13% of the vote,
Mm,
signatures of no, 12% of the vote to trigger a recall. And they were saying there's been like 160 recalls in our history. Um, 10 have actually made it to, um, recall, and six, I think they said six have actually been recalled.
mm,
Governors have been recalled, and that's in California's history. One being Gray Davis. Remember Gray Davis?
yeah. Mm.
And then the Terminator came in, Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's how he got in the recall election. So it's very rare, but it can happen.
I
Um,
mean,
but I think he's setting it up. He's setting it up for all the. I'm going through an issue right now. People don't like how, some people don't like how I handled things in the pandemic, um, especially business owners, where they had to shut down for all those months. A lot of people lost their businesses. So they want somebody. They want somebody to blame, right?
hmm
And all these different things are. I think they're supposed to help in his reelection. So we're gonna see a lot of more things come down the pipeline that's going to help Californians.
I
So
just
we'll
feel
see.
like I feel like stuff like that shouldn't. It's not that. So I want to be. I want to make sure I say this correctly. It's not that we don't like. We don't want to see people's parking tickets get erased. Like living in the city, you understand like how ridiculous some of these parking tickets are. Like I
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I first moved out here, like I think I got like 7 parking tickets in like 2 weeks.
Mm.
It got to the point where I was like, I'm not paying it because it was
Right.
dumb. Like you can't even park on your own street, and then they
Mm-hmm.
make it to where you can only park in certain places on certain days at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time I got a parking ticket. I got a parking ticket in my building,
Mm.
parked in the garage in my building because I was parked up against the wall. And we,
Mm-hmm.
we were coming home from somewhere. It was late. Vita was pregnant, and like there was no parking on the street.
Right.
I'm not about to park 3 miles from my house with
Mm-hmm.
you know with someone who's pregnant. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like with
Right.
my pregnant woman,
Right.
and walk to the house, right? So
Right.
I'm like, I'm parking here. You can write me a ticket if you want. I ain't
Right.
paying it, right? Um, so I get it. I get all of that. My issue with that is when it's painted as a solution. Like this is something that's so basic, and then it's painted as like again, it's part of the Save California plan or whatever. Like how are parking tickets gonna save California?
Yeah.
Like do that anyway. Don't attach that to
Yeah.
we're gonna make the world rosy again. Like that has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
There are many other things or larger problems. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
think I think the main thing here in California is that, in my opinion, at least, the main thing that I feel like is they don't fully respect business owners. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
know they don't. They don't respect business owners. And it's not the pandemic issue, it's just in general. They don't
Yeah.
respect people who have a business.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone everyone who has a business is considered like basically lucky. You know what I mean? It's like, oh well, you don't work hard or you don't do anything, so it doesn't matter if you have a business. You're fortunate.
If you can survive with a business in California, you probably are lucky.
Yeah, low key.
You
Yeah.
probably are lucky. Well, we know it's
California and New
luck. It's
York.
you got to work really, really hard. Um,
I just don't understand why
yeah.
they have to, like, why there can't be why can't there be like a strong enough relationship between the businesses that make up the California experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our government.
Right.
Why does it have to be so like one-sided? To If you
Mm-hmm.
have a business, it doesn't matter. Like, they literally don't care. They'll let you fail.
Mm-hmm.
They would try to make you fail on purpose
Yeah.
just so they can get reelected. And I think that's a big part of why Newsome is in the position he's in now, because he's left so many people who actually paid a good amount of the taxes. He's left them out to dry.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't feel protected.
Yeah. It has to be some type of dual help. I don't mind helping the less fortunate. I believe there should be a safety net for someone who um, who may have lost their job or had a slip up. Um, anything, we know life happens. I think there should be some type of safety net, right?
Hmm.
But everything can't go towards the safety net. It has to go towards also building people who can sustain themselves. So if you have someone who's a new business owner who might not have startup capital, um, why not give them a loan to start their business? If you can give an 18-year-old $40,000 without
Yeah, to
anything,
go to
but you can't
school.
give, yeah, you can't give a new budding business owner $20,000, $30,000 to get their business started. At least they wrote a business plan. Ever seen a student business plan to get a student loan?
It's called transcripts.
Right. 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 You can just sign up. You just sign up, pay the application fee, fill in your FAFSA, or I don't know. Uh, and you can get going.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to.
So
I would like to do some. I'm gonna do some research on that and see exactly when they started doing. Because I have an idea, but I can't remember. But when the government actually started doing student loans,
it was right around like the 70s. I don't know the
because
exact time, but
I
you
feel
can you
like
can
them doing that is like the is what caused the um basically the exponential growth in the cost of private education.
100%. Yes. Yes. That's why you hear usually baby boomers will say, "Well, I finished college I worked a part-time job and I finished without any debt." When did most baby boomers go to college? Right around
Yeah,
that 60s,
before
mid
then, yeah.
60s,
Hmm.
late 50s into the 70s. What happened after that? Now you need school loans to actually go to school because they inflated the price so much. Um, so yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that everything went to shit right after that time, and that was right around the time credit cards came out too, around like the 80s, like late 70s, 80s.
Hmm.
So all these debt programs came out around that time and pretty much messed a lot of people over because Americans, most middle class working working Americans didn't know how to handle debt like that. Debt wasn't even a thing. Most people paid cash for everything.
Yeah.
But now a credit card comes out and your refrigerator's acting up and you can put the refrigerator on credit. It used to be you saved up for everything. The refrigerator is going to be broke all the way until we can pay for it in full. Everything's going to be broken and dilapidate it until we can pay for it in full.
Yeah.
But now you can have somebody pay for it and you can pay it back later. And our future selves always think that we'll do so much better in the future.
Yeah, but that's why like I don't that's why going back to a conversation we've had on earlier episodes, that's why I don't like to overpay for something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I'm not about to overpay. I don't care how much you think it's going to be worth. I'm not overpaying.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a conversation we had, of course, about like real estate prices. Um, if they'll continue to rise or not, and I do think they will in the short term. But the one thing about the one component you have to go along with that is time. So say if I'm paying more today, thinking that's what it's worth in the future, well, how far in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to pay today to break even in 5 years or be negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I pay more today, I want to make sure I still have, it's worth 2 or 3 times or 5 times what I
Mm-hmm.
paid, right?
Yeah,
And
that
so
makes sense.
and
That makes sense
with
from an investor perspective.
yeah, and that's my problem. I
It
think
get
about
it
everything
get
like that,
yeah,
but
it
that's
gets
just
messed up when people are or we're we're tying in an investment with something that has a use case also. And when you put them together, it gets a little muggy. The numbers are the same. Like I can't
yeah,
argue the numbers and the return, but when you have to live in this place to be close to your job, for the kids to be close to their schools, for for all these reasons that work for your life, um, you kind of get off of that investment circle in your return pretty
yeah.
quickly.
No,
But
I
I
get that.
agree. You
It's
know,
tough though. It's tough. I be struggling. I'm
yeah.
struggling because I want, I want that like for my family, but at the same time, I don't want to do something and then feel stupid about it.
Hmm.
Cause,
Yeah, I
cause
get that.
I'm gonna feel stupid. It doesn't matter what people think. I'm
Hmm.
gonna feel stupid to me. Like,
Right, right.
if I have to, if I have to go buy something for 100 grand over, and and then here we are 5 years from now. Now maybe in 30 years in the total lifespan of the loan, okay, yeah, it might
Hmm.
work out. But in, you know, 5 to 6 years, and there's no equity or we're upside down because I overpaid, like I'm gonna feel like a dumbass.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
now I'm stuck. I gotta ride it out, right? Because I'm not gonna sell in the negative.
Hmm.
So um I gotta ride it out until we get back to that point.
Right.
You know what
I
I
get
mean?
that.
And so if I'm gonna pay today, especially if I'm gonna overpay, I want to make sure like the fundamentals are there to support
Mm.
like growth in that area,
Yeah, that
like
was going
real
to be my other
growth.
point.
Yeah, like
Depending on
real
where it
growth.
is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because there
Yeah.
have to be. I think what people don't. I think people often confuse like they confuse what real economic growth is when it comes to like
Hmm.
home prices. They see construction and they think that's growth,
Hmm.
and that's not necessarily growth,
So you saying that like
right?
the new Chick-fil-A on the corner they just built is not going to raise the price of my home
No,
$50,000?
no, because the people who work
Okay.
there don't make that kind of money.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, well, depending on where you live, it might. If it all depends on where you are on the scale. But when
Hmm.
you see, yeah, like you said, when you live in a certain area and you see retailers coming in who normally probably wouldn't be there, no, it won't raise the value of your home. Like it's
Hmm.
the people who work in those jobs either like if home prices have to remain or they have to be in line with the income of the people who live there.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna go and buy a house just because I see like other houses being built, or like in out here in Fontana where my parents live, there's tons of warehouses being built, right? Like just tons. It's like the biggest
Hmm.
warehouse boom since the 80s, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so to think that these houses will just continue to grow in value, you have to say, well, who's going to buy them?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the majority of the jobs are going to be warehouse and retail, we know what those incomes look like.
Yeah. Warehouse,
They can't
retail.
afford $1 million homes. They can't afford $2 million homes. Like, so there has to be a leveling off where prices just get too expensive. But because of course, the cost of money is so cheap right now, people are able to kind of get in, where they can. But there has to be a cooling off per se,
Mm-hmm.
where things kind of even out and find that happy medium until you can
Yeah.
bring other jobs in the area that pay people more money to go out and pay, 7, 8, $1 million for a home.
Mm-hmm.
But until
Yeah.
then, you can't, you just can't do that. So um, when you're overpaying for stuff and you see construction and not economic growth, then it's like, well, what are you really buying into?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not on the mind, like you said, that's not on the mind of someone who's just looking for shelter. Like, I get that. um i'm just I'm just an idiot like that, and that's the kind of stuff that I think about. But like, even North Carolina, like I like North Carolina a lot. They have the Research Triangle. um
I'm
Apple is
not
actually,
I'm not familiar. What is that?
so the Research Triangle is basically like, a very, very oversimplified explanation would be like their version of like Silicon Valley,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a very, very oversimplified
Mm-hmm.
explanation. They
Mm-hmm.
have a certain area in, I believe it's in Durham, where it's just a bunch of companies that have higher end salaries,
Okay.
but the
All
real
right.
estate nearby is still relatively cheap,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So when you see more of these jobs coming in, and these people are making, 2, 3, 4 times the average income, that's a sign of economic growth, because the people who will be living there will now be able to afford to buy anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for growth in markets like that. You want to follow, like I try to tell people, like, you want to follow where the jobs are going, especially like the higher paying jobs. Then you'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to determine like where the growth will come. You know what I mean? In Inglewood, we got the stadium, and everyone thinks that's going to make your property value go up. That's not the case. Like, the stadium has
Yeah.
nothing to do with your property value going up.
What jobs are attached to that?
No, because the only
Yeah.
jobs that are there are retail and whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
all the executive jobs will be on site, but the people who work those jobs will not live in Inglewood,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
So that the money they're spending, those tax dollars for someone, if they were to buy a house in Inglewood, that would go to the city, and most likely those that income is going to be spent outside the city. Homes going to be outside, bought outside the city by those
yeah,
employees, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. I mean, it's if now, I'm not saying that people won't go out and rush to buy property in anticipation
Mm-hmm.
of a stadium or whatever. Yeah, of course. There's always speculators in every asset class. I mean, people are paying $50,000 for Bitcoin.
Uh,
Those are
You
those are
also
speculators.
even okay. It's interesting that speculation is different for everybody in their own city, right? So when you say I have a a stadium coming in my city, this is going to be the effect. But we only have to look at the past and look at the
Exactly.
effect it had on other stadiums covering the different cities and see what type of economic growth is around those cities. And the answer is there's very little. Like look at what was the brick the is it the Barclays Center in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Look at the economic growth around there. Very little to nothing.
I think it only changed like the immediate area like
Yeah,
surrounding it.
across the street.
But
Okay,
but
we have
other than
planters
that,
across the street now. There's planters across the street and new bus stops.
so-
How did that help me?
And I've never been there, so I can't say. But
No, I haven't either,
from
but
what
I
I've
can
seen,
imagine because I
yeah,
know how city planners are. If I'm driving up to a new stadium, I don't want to see trash as I'm driving and trying to have a good time for that 2 hours the game is on or whatever event is going on. So I'm going to make sure the drive there from wherever I'm at, and most likely in somewhere like Inglewood, it's going to be someone jumping off the train. So the minute I jump off the train, everything my walk from that train to the event center is probably going to be clean and pristine.
hmm
You're going to have plants. You're going to have new trees, planters, new stops, new sitting areas, new eating areas, and everything. Once that radius opens up, if you just walk out, you don't see everything else is trash
yeah,
because they're only interested in the perception of what they're doing, the
hmm
perception of that area, that immediate area around the stadium, and what it looks like to people who are coming into the area from the west side or from all these different areas where they can come in and have a good time and spend their money.
yeah,
So yeah, it's going to be, I would say a, a 0.2 mile radius around the stadium, maybe. And I'm being generous. So what's going
yeah.
to actually
Well,
change?
I feel like the areas that are going to change they've already been doing that for many years. Because I mean, the stadium
Yeah.
thing has been a discussion since I want to say 2000 and I mean early discussions like 2010, but like
Mm-hmm.
serious around like 2014 ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all the shopping centers and things in those areas, the developers have come in and done what they needed to do prior to speculation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because they already know this is happening. They're part of the planning committee. So
Yeah.
they were able to do this a while ago. The thing that really added fuel to the fire in terms of speculation was the Clippers saying they're going to build an arena at the corner.
Mm.
So that's when it became like, oh, we're turning into this entertainment hub. Things are going to be, outrageous, and then that's when it drives speculation to where people want people are wanting to be next to the shiny thing,
Since
right?
when has a new entertainment venue helped anyone that lives 5 miles away from it? Like how did like where's the connection? Where's the
Well,
connection for,
if you
because
live
I've
in an
had I've had owners that
mhm.
are 5-10 miles away from the stadium. It says, I think I'm gonna hold on to my property because it's gonna go up because everybody in the stadium. That has
Yeah.
nothing to do with you. That has nothing to do with you.
I think it's a marketing point for people who are close but not close enough.
If yeah,
So
if I'm selling, I'm
yeah,
marketing the shit out of that. Yes,
exactly.
this is close to the stadium. Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna try to benefit off of it. And if a buyer is willing to buy into that, yeah, of course. But literally, no.
Yeah, no,
There's
it's
gonna be
not.
no correlation.
It has nothing. It brings in a lot of tax money for the city, but if you live, or just even for the county, but if you live in an area where that doesn't matter anyway because they mismanage the funds, then you won't actually see that roll out you know into the city.
Right.
Um, so I mean, and that's been a huge talking point here, but all of that is based on a lawsuit because well, in Inglewood is what I'm speaking on, but it's all based on a lawsuit between um, the owner of uh, the owner of the Clippers,
Mm-hmm.
right, Balmer, and the owner of the Knicks, because the owner of the Knicks owns the Forum. So the Madison Square Garden owns the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
They supposedly had a no compete clause or something like that, so that they didn't build another arena nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Clippers come and get approval. Madison Square Garden sues the city. So what do they do to aid in their progress? They put up all these billboards about gentrification, and I'm not making this up. Like, this is all public information. They go out and they finance all these marketing campaigns. They put up billboards about gentrification. They um, they even hired someone to run for mayor against the current sitting mayor, who was like a former pastor or something, but he was funded by Dolan in Madison Square Garden. Like his whole job was to get the current mayor out so that they can block the stadium or block the arena.
Mm,
All right. So now again, these are, you drive around, you see these billboards and people take pictures in front of them and they're on Instagram and it becomes a talking point in gentrification in the stadium and people are kicking us out. All of this is funded by someone who would still kick you out anyway.
hmm. Yeah, it's a long game.
Yeah. So this has, it has, you have to really, really pay attention to um, what's actually happening and not just like on the surface. And I don't know
Hmm.
if it's because people don't really have the time maybe to look deeper into things because they're working and taking care of their families.
Hmm.
And so they kind of have to take everything, on the
At face
surface.
value, right?
Um, but if you have to try and make time because these people are out here playing games with things we actually care about. Like,
Yeah,
you know what
for
I mean?
sure.
And they'll make you go out here and risk your life and get hit with rubber bullets and spray painted. Um, that's my bad. Get spray painted, not spray painted, pepper sprayed, tased
Hmm.
by the police because you're marching for something that they created solely for their benefit.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And I think that's the most annoying part. That's the part that gets me upset the most. Is like because if someone like me or you isn't on the side of we have to stop this from happening, then you're not considered one of them.
right, right.
But you're telling them like this whole thing you're fighting over isn't even real.
Hmm.
This is
Or
marketing.
it's not set up to end in your favor
No,
at
not at
all.
all.
Yeah, it's like yeah, you got to have your own plan because
And that's
that's
why
just
I don't
that's a
talk to people.
it's like I don't know what they own.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
not. I've been in the room, bro. Another one was you remember like when opportunity zones became a thing.
Hmm. Yep.
It's so
Hmm.
funny. I'm glad I brought this up because um I remember when those first came out, and I remember again being in the room. Okay, I'm in
Hmm.
the room. I can't remember the name of the organization, but I have their documentation somewhere. And they were still writing the code. Right?
Hmm.
They were still going through and writing the new tax code for this plan, and it was a big thing. And you had all these social media influencers, a lot of the guys you see today, rappers. Ti was front and center on that issue.
Hmm.
We gotta invest in opportunity zones. Um, it's a way for us to do it and not let them do it and whatever,
Hmm.
right? And like, where's all that now?
Yeah.
And
Give
none
a
of those
little
people
background
understood.
on give a little background on opportunity zones and what it actually is.
So an opportunity zone is in this sense, opportunity zones were areas that were basically outlined in various cities that were probably suffering economically, and so they needed outside investment, right? Because of course the people who live there probably wouldn't do it. So what the government does is they incentivize the outside capital by offering a tax shelter for bringing your money there or creating businesses in this area where they normally wouldn't be created. Now this also wasn't the first time that it happened, right? So if you remember back in like 2000 and I want to say maybe 2007, 2008, you remember go zones? You
Yeah.
remember like they
Yeah.
were
Very.
they were showing us homes in like Mississippi and all that, like condos
Hmm.
and whatnot.
Hmm.
And there was like a huge tax shelter for
Yeah.
buying property there. So that was actually part of George Bush's plan. which included, I forgot what it's called. I actually started writing a book, like a small book. I should have finished that. So I started writing. I started writing a book on the differences between opportunity zones, past and present. But the timeline was like, it was just too. I was lazy, so I'll just say that I was lazy. So
I'm not gonna make no excuse.
yeah, so that was the first time after Katrina, the government implemented certain programs for opportunity zones where you can come in, you can invest capital, and all the money earned is tax free, considering that you're making an investment that was necessary
Mm.
and wouldn't be made
Yeah,
otherwise.
long as you keep the capital there for at least 10 years, and it's the
Exactly.
new
So that
opportunity
was the
zone.
new
Right,
one, right? So
right.
the new one, when I got introduced to it, and they were still writing the code at this point,
Mm-hmm.
um, the 10-year window had just started, right? So if I remember correctly, and it only really made sense if you had a large amount of capital, because if
Mm-hmm.
I, just like we talked about in um, a previous episode about the 1031 exchange, if I had property or if I had business here, like say somewhere in California, and I've had it for an extended period of time, and now without getting in depth, now it might make sense for me to sell that and park the money somewhere else, right? So if I can take that money and park it in an opportunity zone in a qualifying business or a qualifying property, the government gives me a 10-year window. As long as that money stays there in that 10-year window, it completely relieves me of paying capital gains tax at the end of 10 years. Now, what I remember is, I think after year 5, you get a discount on your basis. So, for example, if I had $1 million, if I sold a building after all fees, I had $1 million that I was able to park in an opportunity zone. After 5 years, they would give me I think it was like a 5% discount on my basis. Your basis is what you actually paid for the property, because capital gains tax is determined by what you paid for the property and what is currently, or what you sold it for, whatever that gain is, right? So say if my basis was a half a million, 500 grand. So they would give me a discount of like 5% on my basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I think at 7 years, you would get like another 10% discount on your
Mm-hmm.
basis. And then, of course, 10 years, it would be completely wiped out. There'd be no
Mm-hmm.
capital gains tax, regardless of how much money you made. You can make $1, you can make $20 million. It'd be tax free,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so that's what I remember about it. But at the time, like I said, when I got introduced to it, that 10-year window had just started, and the only way to completely relieve yourself of that tax burden is to hold it for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
or hold it for that, because it was a fixed period of time. It wasn't like a floating 10-year window. It was
Right.
like, no, the 10 years has started today. So if you start
Mm-hmm.
next year, you have 9 years. You won't get the full you won't get
Mm-hmm.
the full tax relief, but you'll still be able to qualify for the discount.
Right.
Right. So it was something along those lines of that. But then, of course, the way that it's talked about um, by famous people and people who have something to sell you, they don't talk about none of that. They're telling
Mm-hmm.
you to go out and start a business and get your LLC
Buy the
over
block.
here and start a business in an opportunity zone. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
And actually, I ran into a guy on Clubhouse who said just that in a room, and he said, go ahead and start your business, go get some of these government loans, and open up shop in an opportunity zone. And he was a business coach. And it's like, nah, man. It's like, nah,
Yeah.
that's not how
It's
it
like
works.
that's not how it works. Uh,
So
this is how it worked. Show.
yeah. So I know that was really dry because we're talking about taxes, but so if you're still listening,
Right. No,
Um,
I think that. I mean, I think that was great. Um, I'm like, I like this podcast. As I'm on it.
yeah, I mean that's it's important though. It's important to know that because, like
Right.
we were saying, going back to like people taking things at face value, you hear something like because all these things have been thrown around for the past what maybe
At
3 or
least,
4 years.
yeah, at least 5 years maybe in that
You know,
window.
when talking about because that was the big thing at the moment was like
It was.
gentrification, opportunity
Mm-hmm.
zones that'll help us combat gentrification. Now
Mm-hmm.
you don't hear none of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the new wave no more. The new wave is like entrepreneurship, um, renting everything you own,
Mm-hmm.
um, NFTs,
I just,
crypto.
I just wish we can just be consistent. I mean, I think this is what we talk about. These concepts in investing and owning things and running business is boring. It takes a long time, and you have to be consistent at what you're doing. Um, that was it. That's all I had. I haven't said anything. I haven't said anything in a while, so I just wanted to say a thing.
Yeah, you set up this epic rant
Right.
that was like 10 seconds. That was so pointless. Like, what was
Like, I didn't say anything in a while, so I said a thing. There we go.
it was-
I'm on this podcast too.
oh man, that was so pointless.
uh,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
but
just
I,
having
I
fun.
agree. I agree. It is very like you do have to emphasize that all these things take time. And I know I project a lot personally because in many cases, or most of the time, actually all the time, I'm talking to
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I say these things in this way because this is how I say them to me to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that I stay disciplined because the discipline is what's going to keep you sane.
Right.
You know what I mean, otherwise you're going to run and jump to every single thing, and and that's why I like to make a clear distinction on like what things are and not get fooled by the fancy words.
Mm-hmm.
And because they'll call it something new, but if it's just hustling, then that lets me know how to approach it. Oh, it's just another hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the principles of business investing, they're the same and they've been the same and they won't change because all the people who do them correctly are old.
Mm-hmm.
The old people aren't going to change the rules. Have you ever
Right.
you ever tried to change something an old person does?
Yeah. They still got
It's
the
not going to
same phone
work.
from the 80s.
It's
Like,
not
I'm
going
gonna
to
use this
work.
Motorola.
I have clients who don't even use email.
Yeah.
Like they don't have an email.
Yeah. You know, like,
They've
pull
never
up to the
needed to.
house.
They don't need to. They've made millions of dollars without email. Why would I need email?
I think that's a great way to live. If you really need me, come to my house. I know it's unrealistic to even go back to those days, but I like that.
I don't
If
know,
it's really
man. I
important,
think
come
I
come
think
to my
with
house.
business that happens. That happens in business. Like, well,
Yeah,
depending
for
on what
sure.
kind of business you're in, but I think that happens once you get to it. Because when you get to a certain like level and dollar amount, it
Yeah.
makes sense because I want to see who I'm dealing with.
If you're talking about millions of dollars trading hands, I'm not gonna do that through email or text.
Yeah,
I'm gonna see you. And if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna see you again.
yeah.
So it's in that business on a certain level, it's important to do things in person, which has
Hmm.
been why this past year has been a real struggle. Um, it's been a real struggle to because those type of relationships usually happen in person, especially new relationships
Hmm.
that you're just building. Um, so yeah, what were we talking about? I
Yo,
said
you,
I said
you,
another thing.
you need to. Is that the name? Is that the name of this episode? I'm on this podcast too. Is that what it's gonna be? Just-
It's the early show.
the early show.
You see, my Kevin Samuels filter's not on.
Yeah, I see,
Uh,
man. It's
but I mean, you talking about you know, What did you say earlier? Uh, Stop laughing at me, man. You supposed to be my friend.
Bro, why are you here? Why did you why did you show up today? You could have called in sick.
I have a duty. I have a duty to be here. uh,
Man, what did you say
I'm
earlier?
I'm enjoying this podcast. uh,
Oh man. Anyway, speaking of hustle, uh, we gonna bring this up, and then we can go ahead and wrap it up, so you can relax for the rest of the day.
I'll take the rest of the day off.
um,
Uh,
the
we
crypto
appreciate y'all for
world,
being here, for real.
the crypto world, and specifically Bitcoin. They're kind of upset with Elon Musk right
Mm-hmm.
now, um, because he went on Saturday Night Live and called Dogecoin a hustle, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
see why that was so problematic. I mean, I feel like I thought
Like,
that was
yeah,
known.
that's right in line.
Yeah. Um, but somehow, some way, well, no, what happened was he actually mentioned that he would stop taking Bitcoin and other cryptos as a form of payment.
Mm-hmm.
And once he did that, things kind of fell apart.
It tanked, right?
Yeah. And and they've been like berating him on Twitter, and he's been like leaning into it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just he's like, well, it's like he took your ball in his house, and then you're outside yelling at him to give you the ball back, and he's like, you know what? Since you're yelling, I'm gonna keep it. That's kind of
Right.
what was going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not upset. I mean, they're not happy with him right now. They're kind of at war, low key.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, at one point, he was a savior, right? Elon Musk
yeah.
talked about, Doge and, his capabilities and his usefulness. And all of a sudden, once he goes back on that and starts making it a joke again, the way it started out,
Hmm.
now there's an issue. So I was under the impression that we all knew it was a joke. We knew it was a hustle. We knew it was a way to make quick money if more people believed in it to pump. So I don't see why people be mad. Maybe the true believers are mad. Whatever they thought was a real thing,
No,
the true
that's what it
believers.
is.
Um,
That's what it is.
but they're delusional anyway. So it's okay for those people to be mad. They were so far out on the reality of this thing that it's not really a real thing, but it's something you can make money on as long
Yeah.
as the next person believes in it, and that's fine. It's like you say, if this is a hustle, this is fine.
I,
Uh,
I think I think people underestimate just how, like, I don't want to say smart, but just like clever, and I like how quick they are to like people like Elon are
mhm,
to do something. They have endless resources.
right.
Like, they can make anything. You
Mhm,
know what I mean? So if he's like, if for him it could be a prank, but because of his access to certain resources and his positioning, it can actually become something like in the natural world.
mhm.
You know what I mean? So for him, this might really be just a thing. Like, he's playing.
This is a typical thing with people who build things from nothing, right? You have the person who builds something and gives it to the market, then you have the person who consumes it.
Hmm.
And in this case, the product is not a real thing. So the people who are consuming it are now mad that you revealed it wasn't a real thing.
Yeah,
So in his mind, he's a builder. He can go build something else and make it something. He can have a Elon coin
he
if he
literally
wanted
could.
to,
Yeah, if he really wanted to, he could.
and he can manipulate it by whatever he says. And I think people have to be careful with people who are genius or good at marketing or good at taking the limelight and turn it into profit, because those people can drop the ball, that shiny thing, once is no longer interesting to them.
Hmm.
So when we talk about financial concepts, and whatever you're purchasing has to have some type of value, actual real life value, if you stick to those core things, you won't ever get burned. You won't be the person like, dang, why did he go on Saturday Night Live? I just put 60,000 to this, and now my my uh my initial investment is 10,000 or whatever it is. So on this podcast, I hope we're teaching people how to think, right? So whatever comes up, whether it's Doge, Elon coin, or whatever else happens, you can think and have some discernment when you're going to these investments, right? These quote unquote investments,
Hmm.
where you're not the person who's now upset because someone said something and made something less valuable. Instead of that thing starting out valuable based on the income it generates, if you
Hmm.
started there, something is valuable based on the income it generates, as opposed to it's valuable because someone said it is, you will be okay.
Yeah.
So um, that's their bad that they mad. Uh, you
Yeah. I
shouldn't have
mean,
been investing in
that
that
makes
bullshit
sense.
anyway. Without knowing that that it's a hustle. It's a short term hustle. All right. If we're all on the same page with that, I'm fine. But if
But
you're gonna make
I
me
even
believe
get
in shit that ain't shit, like I have an issue with that.
I even get um I even like cringe a little bit when people use the word investing in the same like sentence with stuff like that's
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I don't, to be honest, that's really why I don't like get involved, because it'll be, oh, are you investing in such and such, and I'm like, no, because there's no reason to invest.
Right. There's no investment component.
Now if you ask me if I'll trade it or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I might trade it, like there's a setup there, then I might trade it. But if you're saying buy and hold, I'm like, for what? It's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be 5 cents forever. Like,
Right. Right.
there's no, like you said, it doesn't generate any, and I know it's not a company, but the way that these things are being rolled out, they are attached to a company. So if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
buy the coin or the token, whatever it may be, I need to know what the company is doing that makes that token valuable, right? So,
Yeah.
or that
We're
coin.
not going. We're not going to allow people to shift real reality. We're not going to make a new definition on what value is, or what makes something valuable, right? We just can't. We just once once you start once you start muddying those lines, it gets stupid, and that's when people start losing all their money. If I
It's
can't
not funny, but it's
understand,
funny. Yeah.
right, if I can't understand what's valuable based on the core definition of what makes something valuable, and not just based on if the next sucker is going to think it's valuable, like we didn't messed up. And
Yeah.
maybe that's just maybe because I don't know. Actually, I'm not even going to go into why I think people think that way,
Well, we kind of
because it
touched on it
doesn't work in
earlier.
any other scenario. If you
I
if you're
think
selling a car and you say you look at the market and see what the car is going for. If the car is $10,000 for that year, make, model, and depending on the whatever how many miles is on the car, and you look the last three cars that sold for $10,000, that's what the value is. That's what the market value is.
yeah, but see, you would do that. The average person doesn't do that. When they need a
Yeah,
car, they go to the dealer and say, "Oh, the salesman is going to have my best interest."
there we go. So
So
Elon Elon Musk is
that's
a
not,
salesman.
that's what I'm saying. It's not I don't think people have the time, or at least they tell themselves they don't have the time to dig deep into things, or maybe they feel like it's not worth the time. It's not that big of a deal. Like I bought a car. I financed a car once, um, and that was in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I was like, never again. Now I had to learn, right? And so now if I buy a car, it's a lease,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'll lease a car all day. but I would never especially a new car. I would never finance a new car.
Hmm.
Maybe an older car that's depreciated and depending on the type of vehicle it is, may be appreciating. Then yes, I'll finance it because I'll either have a very small loss or I might get a very small gain. Um, but I don't think people take the time after the experience to actually look into what the process was that actually took place to avoid not doing that again. You
Maybe
know
it's
what I
just
mean?
bare bones. Whatever I buy and I hold on to it, the longer I hold on to it, it'll be valuable to someone else. Maybe it's just simple as that.
I don't think
And
so because we know the things we buy aren't worth anything.
do we? Do they?
You might be right.
I don't know
You might be right. I do.
because I see people. I'm learning from this podcast. I know these things because I see people who really want to invest in real estate, but I see them walking around with their down payment on, right? So people know that the things we buy don't hold any value. They know the correlation to you spending your money on consumer goods is not an investment. No one goes to buy a pair of pants and say these pants are going to be worth, $100. I bought them for $100. They're going to be worth $200 in 2 years. But it doesn't stop them from spending the money on their stuff and things.
Hmm.
So we know what consumerism is when we're spending money and it has no value. No value is coming back. So why don't we know the money we spend in other places has no value coming back, like a Dogecoin?
Well, because if your relationship with money is solely to spend, then that'll be your position every single time you're presented with something.
Okay, so there
You're,
we go. We're getting down to it.
yeah, you're spending money. You're not investing. You're just spending.
Okay, with the hopes of having some type of return from it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so people just spending money. Okay, I get it.
Well, we
We
solved that
figured it out.
problem.
See, I knew we talked it through. We talked it through and get it.
I think that's what it is.
They're
I
just
think it's
spending money
yeah. They just
because
spend.
someone else spent it, and it's a cool thing, right? If I come with the new Balenciagas on and my friend sees it, they're like, "Oh, those are nice. I would like those." So it's the same thing when they say you should invest in Elon coin, Dogecoin. My friend did it. It worked out for him. So I don't know. I think it's just a spending money thing.
No, it is. I agree. I do think that's they don't that there's no process to it. It's the same action every single
Yeah.
time. Of just okay, well, instead of spending my money here, I'm just gonna spend it here, and because I spend it here, I'm supposed to get something back. It's like they're unaware of the actual trade that's taking
Mm-hmm.
place. Like, because that's what money's for trade,
Mm-hmm.
not to spend. If you have something I need, I trade my dollars for that thing, right? So if you need money to go and build your business, I'm trading my dollars, you know, for a return. It's not just I'm giving you some money with like the hopes of, and maybe to them investing is hoping. maybe maybe that's what it is. Like it's hope. It's like I put some money here and I hope it works. So we
It's a lot
got
of
we got
that.
to do we got to do a better job of I'm gonna make sure to I'm gonna put that on my list. We got to do a better job of teaching people, not on this podcast per se, but just in life, of like
Mm-hmm.
what investing like really is. Because I don't think even the people who are in front of them on the internet, well, I know they don't understand investing,
Mm-hmm.
um, because everything they're being presented in today's time is all about the now. It's all about getting the cash flow now, right? And we all know that that well runs dry eventually because it's been dry for the last 10 years, 15 years. And then the pandemic hits and now it's like, okay, now we can do all these things that give us cash flow, you know? Um and then once things change again, is that cash flow still going to be there?
No, if
And
it's
then
built on,
so if the cash flow isn't there and it's not something that has equity, what do you really have?
Mhm.
You know, even an NFL player had their contract is NFL player, NBA player, their contract is basically a running liability because because they
Mhm.
base their lifestyle off of the contract. And then
Yep,
once they're out of the league or injured, they can no longer afford to live that way, but they do,
that's scary.
right? And then you end up in a situation where you've burned through 100, 200, 300 million dollars in the span of like 10 years and you have nothing
Hmm.
because there's there you didn't put in the money in anything that gave you equitable interest that I could then liquidate and turn into cash at a
Hmm.
later date instead of give me all my cash now. I don't need the equitable interest tomorrow. I just want to get what I can now to look like I have it today. I'll figure the rest out later.
Later
Like
never
that's
comes.
that's a bad way to that's an easy way to put yourself in a hole. You know what I mean? Like and
And that's not even at. See, we always think of levels of entertainers, ball players who make this type of money, and people say, "Well, I would never blow that much money." Well, take it to your own situation. If you're making $70,000 a year, and you go buy a $10,000 bag or $10,000 worth of clothes in that year, that's equally stupid.
yeah, but it's marketing. You don't
Equally
understand
stupid.
marketing. You don't know shit about
Get
boxing.
you know shit about boxing. Right. I
Oh
mean,
man.
I get marketing. I get maybe I don't get
No,
being dumb.
I agree with
Yeah.
you. No, I agree. I just think it's that's the response. The
Yeah, I
response
know for
is
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it
I
doesn't
get it.
matter if I only make 60,000 a year. If I can show you that I look like I make more than 60,000 a year, even though I'm telling you I make 60,000 a year,
Hmm.
then I can sell you whatever.
Right.
You know, so it's all of that is just I'm not even going to get into that. There's no need to even get into that. But it's that's how it comes about though. Like it's
Hmm.
a nonstop cycle. That's why you always see as many NBA players there are that have existed in the league over the last, I don't know, 70 years, however long it's been. You only see a handful of them that have real wealth,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Because they
that's
were
true.
smart enough to park their capital, um, and actually split it up. Even Allen Iverson, like Allen Iverson was probably the smartest, dumbest NBA player of all time
Hmm.
because
About practice.
he was smart enough to lock up like $35 million
Hmm.
in like a trust fund that he couldn't touch until he was like 55.
Mm.
So he's like, I'm gonna go out here and be crazy with all my other money,
Yeah.
and he blew it.
Hmm.
But at the
He
end of
just
the
waiting
day,
until he turned 55. Like, oh, it's about to be on again. It's about to be
but at
cracking
least,
again.
yeah, he probably is saying that. But at least he's in a position where it's like I can do that and I don't have to worry.
Hmm.
Now, if he blows that, then yes, he has to worry. But it's just the point, like of
Yeah.
being able to taking those gains and parking them in. I don't care. Like I seen a post the other day that said the old wave was getting debt, buying real estate to make a couple $100 in cash flow. The new wave is building digital businesses that cost you nothing and like create recurring cash flow.
Okay.
And
Look,
it's something along the lines. I know I'm saying it wrong, but
those
something along the lines of
things,
that.
those two things are two different disciplines,
I was just about to say
right?
that.
Two different disciplines. You have your earned income with your business. That's income. That's your employment. Investing is a whole nother component. Stop merging the two. They're not the same.
But they
Your
can't. They
your
can't
investment
because
vehicle is different from your income.
they can't do that. The people who are teaching them from a place of use these things as your income.
That's
That's why
because
I'm, that's why
we're still
that's why I'm
speaking
saying
in hustle.
they don't understand investments. I know
We're
that.
speaking
So
in hustle terms.
yeah.
We speaking with a hustle mindset. It's not about just if you make $4,000 a month. It's not about most people think if I make X amount of money, it's about making more money any way possible, right? If I make $4,000 a month and I can make another $1,000 baking cookies and selling them on the weekends, now I made $5,000. That's
Hmm.
still part of income. When you merge
Yeah.
the two, is maybe what's going on is they're merging income and saying maybe they're merging the income and saying I'm using this extra income to invest. So they're bringing earned income in, turn it into investment income, which is normal, but you have to separate it in your head because what you're basically commingling, you're commingling your investment income, your employment income or your business
Hmm.
income with your investment income, and you're merging the two. If you keep them separate in your head, we won't have these conversations of hustling the $10,000 you made or came up on and trying to turn it into 20 or 30.
Hmm.
So I don't know how to split that in people's heads.
Well, they'd have to understand what investing actually means and not just income replacement. Like they're trying to
Yeah.
supplement their income and they're using investment vehicles to do so. But if you're
Yeah.
mixing the two together, then you'll lose sight of what investing really is and you'll only focus on replacing your income. Because the whole thing, remember, right now is entrepreneurship. You don't need a job.
Hmm.
So if they can do something to replace whatever that job was giving them, it doesn't matter what you call it.
Okay, that's what I'm missing. I'm
Yeah.
missing the component of people trying to quit their jobs, their earned income. They're trying to stop that
Yes.
and live off all investment income. Okay,
Yes.
that's what we're doing. That's
And
stupid.
you can do that in a period like right now where the markets are ridiculous and our government has printed trillions of dollars that has to
You,
go back into it has to go somewhere. Like that's the one thing that's missed out of all this. The money has to go somewhere. If you were on the corner that day, you probably got some money, right?
yeah.
Once that money circulates or stops circulating, the corner dries up.
I would ask these people, um, who do you know personally that has no earned income and live off investment, their investment income only? Personally, who do you know?
Everybody I know that's like that is like 80, 70, and
Thank
80
you.
years old.
How many people know 80-year-olds? I mean, I know them because the person who lives this way is 75 plus years old. They invested, they had income for 30 years. They invested most likely during that 30 years and invested an additional 40 years after that.
Hmm.
That makes sense. If that person tells
Yeah.
me I live off my investments, my investment income, or my pension, or my social security, or my buildings are paid off and all the cash flow goes directly to me after expenses or etc. I get that. But you telling me someone who's 30, 35 years old is living off of investment income only.
No, not I don't know. You would have to be second generation.
That would make sense.
Um,
I'm living
and
off the trust fund and
I'm not
I'm investing
saying
that money.
I'm not gonna say it doesn't exist. I'm just saying in terms of in my travels in life, I haven't I haven't bumped into anyone who was around that age who just had unless they had Bitcoin or something. But even then, it was that might have been like one person.
How probable is it? It's of all of history. Let's just take the last 50 years. I'll give you the person. Okay, I'll give you 10 people who did that. How probable is it for you to do it? The everyday person who's working a job, making 80, $90,000 to now replace all
No,
their earned income with investment income within
it's
what span of time? Also, if this
it's damn
person's
near
just learning,
impossible at that point. Yeah.
it's like, if you have no job, where does the money come from to invest if you have no income? These are just, I mean, you would just think they're just simple concepts, but I don't think people are fully thinking this.
No,
It, I
we've
think the main
discussed
thing they're
that.
thinking about is, I don't want to work a job. Nobody does.
But I feel like that's the easy thing to replace, and that's what bothers me the most about it. And maybe we sound like we're saying, rely on your job forever or whatever, but that's not the case. It's not that I want you to just work a job uh, forever. It's just a matter of understanding that that's not a hard thing to replace. The issue isn't replacing the income. It's not hard to replace the income. Obviously, people are finding out right now because they're doing all kinds of things and making enough money. They're probably selling paper clips online or something and making money. Right? It's not hard to replace your job. The hard part is growing that into something else that can continue to work. That's the hard part. So to just go and throw away your job, if you have one that's giving you what you need in life, to just go and throw it away for a chance, like a chance at something that, based on the economic circumstances, is likely to not continue after after a certain time period, is just short-sighted. But you can't tell people that
No,
because
no one's thinking about sustainability. Like, for someone like me, I survived the last recession.
yep.
When this recession happened, my first thing was thinking, how do I, well, not even when it happened, after it happened, my rebuild all the way up was based on, how do I sustain whatever lifestyle I now enter, right? So if we're not thinking about sustainability, it's more likely going to crumble,
Hmm.
right? And you have to think about these things ahead of time. I thought about this 10 years ago when I lost property and income and all these different things. So I'm speaking from experience. If I was to, at that time, say, I'm going to live the rest of my life off of these cash flows on this real estate, and the market tanks and that cash flow is no longer there, or you can't sell the real estate because now you're upside down on the property, what do I do now? Let's take that scenario. I'm not 20, 21 years old. I'm 65.
Exactly.
There's no time to rebuild, right? So the person who's building now, you have to build 70 years in the future. So I had the time to rebuild after a loss. These people won't have time to rebuild
Nope.
if you go down that route. So your earned income or your retirement, all these different things are going to be important for the rest of your life. You're going to need them in place. They're not You don't replace them with investment income. Your investment income is a different component.
Yeah.
Like, let's stop merging the two. So I speak from experience when I say you need to build something that's sustainable for the long term, because the other way doesn't work. It
No.
doesn't work. I tried it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I
nobody
did it.
wants nobody wants to hear that.
It doesn't
You
work.
can't you can't tell somebody that, man, and they just made
Well, they
a
just
couple
say, they
hundred
just think,
grand
well,
on
you messed up.
Dogecoin or whatever.
You messed up. I'll be better. I'll be lucky. I'll do it better. But if you look at history, no one does that well. It's very little people who get lucky. So
Yeah. Well, I guess you made up for all the other times during this podcast where you,
yeah.
you showed up right here. All right, Dorrance is back.
I said a thing.
Yeah, man. So all that is true, and
Yeah.
I think we could go ahead and probably wrap it up. I know we've been going at it
Yeah.
for a minute.
I didn't even
I
set the
gotta,
timer this time. Okay.
so um, once again, I'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with us during this, during this time. Go ahead, comment, like, and subscribe if anything spoke to you during the podcast. Um, any final words, Dorrance?
I promise I'll do better next time. No, I'm having fun. We appreciate y'all for being here. Um, we'll see you next week.
Yep.